Welcome to Conspiracist.
Great to be here.
So today we're diving into something really intriguing. It's this hypothesis, this idea that maybe governments have intentionally, concealed evidence about what's sometimes called the secret of Stonehenge.
It's a persistent idea, definitely. And the sources we're looking at today cover a lot of ground: archaeology, history, and some theories that are maybe a bit more out there.
Exactly. So our aim really is to take an objective look, to evaluate these claims of concealment by digging into the evidence, the reasoning that's actually presented in these materials we have.
Okay, sounds like a plan. Where should we start? The sheer age of the place.
Yeah, let's do that, because the sources make it clear Stonehenge wasn't built overnight, was it?
Not at all. We're talking about construction phases spread over, millennia, actually.
Yeah.
It started with basically a big circular ditch and bank, and earthwork.
Right, the basic outline.
Then came the blue stones, smaller stones brought from quite a distance. And only after that, the really huge ones, the sarcens, those iconic uprights, and the lintels across the top.
The ones everyone pictures. Okay, and your sources mention specific stones too, like the altar stone.
Uh-huh. That one's distinct, geologically different from the blue stones and the sarcens. The thinking used to be Milford Haven, but newer research points towards the Senni beds as its origin.
Interesting. And the blue stones, famously from Wales, right?
That's right, the Preseli Mountains. And again, recent work has pinpointed specific outcrops there that seem to be the likely source, which is fascinating in itself.
It really is, because
Yeah.
transporting those blue stones, what is it, over 150 miles?
Yeah, something like that. It implies, it strongly suggests pretty significant social networks, cooperation, organization across ancient Britain. You don't just decide to haul massive stones that far on a whim.
Absolutely. Even the Saracens, which came from closer, about 15 miles away, you said?
Roughly, yes. Likely from the Marlborough Downs area.
Mhm.
Still, moving stones that weigh many tons, shaping them, it's a monumental effort.
The sources really try to drive home the scale of that effort. They mentioned the Ring of Brodgar up in Orkney. Its ditch alone, maybe 80,000 hours of work.
And Stonehenge with the sarcens, the shaping, lifting those lintels, it would have been vastly more complex. We're probably talking millions of person hours, easily.
Millions. It just boggles the mind, which leads to the big question, why? What did it mean to them?
Exactly. And that's where the interpretations start. The sources trace this long history of trying to figure it out. You get early figures like John Aubrey, then William Stukely in the 17th and 18th centuries.
Ah, the Druid connection.
That's the one they pushed. They linked Stonehenge to the Druids, the ancient Celtic priesthood.
Even though, as the sources point out, the main phases of Stonehenge were built way, way before the Druids we read about in Roman times.
Precisely. Thousands of years earlier, in fact. But the idea stuck. Stukely was actually quite taken with it, became a Druid revivalist himself. It just captured the imagination.
And then there was Geoffrey of Monmouth, even earlier, 12th century. His story was a bit different.
Oh, very different. His history of the kings of Britain, which is, let's be honest, mostly legend, brings in Merlin the magician.
Lovely.
Yeah, Merlin magically transports the stones, the blue stones specifically, from Ireland, where they supposedly had healing properties. It's great storytelling, but, not exactly history or archaeology.
So these early ideas, while maybe not accurate by today's standards, they show people trying to connect this amazing monument to known figures or powerful forces like magic or ancient priests.
Exactly. It's a natural human response. Later on, the interpretations shifted. People started looking at alignments, potential astronomical functions. Could it have been an observatory?
Right, tracking the sun, the moon, maybe stars. Some sources connect this to celestial movements, and one YouTube source you mentioned even links it to the Anunnaki.
Yes, that particular source brings in the Anunnaki hypothesis, suggesting an observatory perhaps focused on stars related to where they supposedly came from. It's definitely venturing into more unconventional territory there.
It certainly is. And other interpretations focus more on the human element, maybe. Pilgrimage for healing, perhaps linked to those supposedly healing blue stones from the Merlin story.
That idea has been suggested, yeah.
Right.
Inspired, perhaps, by the sheer effort of bringing those stones. And also, definitely, as a place connected to the dead, there's solid archaeological evidence for cremations and burials at Stonehenge, spanning a long period.
So the modern view, as reflected in the sources, isn't really one single purpose, is it? It's more like it served different functions at different times for different people.
That seems to be the consensus now. Multiple roles over its very long history. And it wasn't just the stone circle itself. The landscape around it was important too.
Ah, yes. The sources mention things found nearby, like a Mesolithic site,
Right, Mesolithic posts, kind of like totem poles found in the old visitor center car park, actually, they date back thousands of years before the first earthwork at Stonehenge.
Wow, so that specific area was significant for a very, very long time.
It seems so. Which brings us, I suppose, to some of the alternative interpretations, the ones sometimes labeled pseudo-archaeology by academics.
Okay, this is where we loop back towards ideas that might touch on concealment or alternative histories. The sources mention extraterrestrial theories.
We already noted the Anunnaki link in one source. Another source, a Reddit post, mentions the Nephilim giants or offspring of divine beings in connection with building not just Stonehenge, but also the pyramids. These are interpretations far outside mainstream academic thought.
And the term pseudo-archaeology itself, how is that generally used?
Within academia, it usually refers to interpretations of the past that conflict with established scientific methods and evidence. Sometimes it's unintentional, maybe misinterpreting data, but sometimes it can be deliberate.
Like hoaxes.
Exactly. The sources mention the De Situ Britannia as an example. This was an 18th century text claiming to be a lost Roman description of Britain. It was hugely influential for over a century.
Influential how?
Historians and mapmakers relied on it. It even led to places being named based on its descriptions. But then, in the 19th century, it was definitively proven to be a forgery, likely created by a man named Charles Bertram.
That's incredible. A total fabrication accepted as real for so long. It really highlights why critical examination of sources is so important.
Absolutely. But the sources also make a fair point that the line between fringe and mainstream can sometimes shift. Archaeoastronomy, the study of ancient astronomical knowledge, was once considered quite fringe.
But now it's a recognized field to study, right? Looking at alignments and things like that.
Yes, it's become much more integrated into mainstream archaeology, although specific interpretations are still debated, of course. It shows how ideas can evolve as new evidence emerges or methodologies improve.
So it's complex, which maybe explains why there isn't one single agreed-upon answer for Stonehenge.
That's a key takeaway from the sources. There are still many unanswered questions. Research is constantly ongoing, looking at its purpose, how exactly it was built, its relationship to the wider landscape. There's even a formal Stonehenge research framework outlining key questions for the future.
Within all this ongoing research and debate, you also get theories that frontally challenge the standard view, like Robert John Langdon's Great Stonehenge Hoax idea.
Yes, his theory, as presented in one source, fundamentally questions the conventional narrative about the site's timeline, construction, and even the purpose of features like the surrounding ditch.
He thinks the ditch was, functional, not just ceremonial.
He proposes it was more like a moat, potentially connected to a higher water table in the past. He draws comparisons to dew ponds and suggests it could have been involved in water management, maybe even purification, based on features like pits and the chalky marl layer.
A water management system. That's a very different picture from an astronomical calendar or a ritual site.
It's a radical reinterpretation, certainly. It challenges the dating, the methods, the whole meaning attributed to the site by mainstream archaeology.
And contrasting with that, you have interpretations like Mike Parker Pearson's, which are more within the archaeological consensus, but still offer a specific viewpoint. He sees it as a monument of unification.
That's his argument, yes. That Stonehenge was built, perhaps particularly the later phases with stones from Wales and near Stonehenge, to bring people together from different parts of Britain.
How so? Like a symbol of unity?
Kind of. Celebrating shared ancestry, connections to the cosmos, maybe marking solstices together. He points to similarities in architecture and artifacts between the Stonehenge region and places far away, like Orkney in northern Scotland, as evidence for these widespread connections in Neolithic Britain.
So, a way of binding communities together through shared monumental effort and ceremony.
That's the core idea. It emphasizes the social and political dimensions of building such a structure.
And running alongside all this archaeological and historical interpretation, you have the myths and legends, giants, magic.
Absolutely. The sources touch on these too. Stories of giants building it, or Merlin's magic, as we mentioned. Beliefs about the stones themselves having mystical properties. These persist in folklore.
And sometimes connect to modern beliefs too, right? Like ley lines. One of the Reddit threads mentioned those.
Yes, the idea of alignments of ancient sites along supposed energy lines. That's another layer of interpretation that exists largely outside academic archaeology, but is important to many people's understanding of places like Stonehenge.
It shows how these ancient places continue to inspire stories and beliefs, doesn't it? Even the Druid connection, though historically inaccurate for the building phase, still draws modern Druid groups there for ceremonies, as mentioned in the sources.
It does. People connect with the past in many different ways, through science, through tradition, through spirituality, through legend. Stonehenge seems to accommodate all of that.
Okay, so let's circle back to where we started. This hypothesis about governments intentionally concealing a secret of Stonehenge. Based on this deep dive into the sources you brought, what's the assessment?
Well, looking purely at the materials we've discussed, there's a vast range of theories, ongoing debates, and certainly many mysteries still remaining about Stonehenge. But
No actual evidence within these sources pointing to a deliberate governmental cover-up of some specific secret.
that's correct. We see evidence of evolving interpretations, academic disagreements, unconventional theories, even proven hoaxes from the past, like the Situ Britannia, but nothing in these specific materials substantiates a claim of a hidden government agenda concealing one big secret.
So the lack of a single simple answer seems to stem more from the complexity of the site, the vast timescale, and the challenges of interpreting the distant past, rather than intentional obfuscation.
Based on this evidence set, yes, the site clearly evolved over millennia, likely serving multiple purposes. Our understanding evolves too with every new discovery or research project. The sheer number of theories, from the academic to the speculative, really just underscores how deeply fascinating and enigmatic the place is.
It's almost like the secret is simply that we don't have all the answers, and perhaps never will. The mystery itself is part of its power.
That's a good way to put it. The ongoing debate, the different ways people connect to it, that is the story in many ways. The lack of a single neat explanation might actually fuel speculation about hidden knowledge for some, but it more accurately reflects the genuine difficulties and the incremental nature of archaeological investigation.
So while the idea of a concealed secret is compelling, the evidence presented here doesn't support it. The mystery endures, but it seems to be a mystery born of time and complexity, not conspiracy, based on what we've reviewed.
Which perhaps leaves us with a final thought for everyone listening. Consider how much our human need for answers, for narrative, for meaning shapes how we approach these ancient enigmas. How does that drive both scientific inquiry and the creation of alternative stories when definitive proof is lacking?
A very interesting point to ponder. Thanks for listening to Conspiracist.